The evacuation sirens wailed across New Geneva Station as Marcus Webb sprinted through the corridors, his security uniform torn and stained with plasma burns. The Kytherian invasion fleet had broken through the outer defenses 3 hours ago, and now their ground forces were systematically hunting down every human on the diplomatic outpost. His combat boots echoed against the metal flooring as he clutched his sidearm, a standard Alliance pulse pistol that felt woefully inadequate against the advanced weaponry of humanity's newest enemy. The station's lights flickered overhead, emergency power struggling to maintain basic systems as the ship-to-ship bombardment continued outside. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Marcus ducked into an alcove as footsteps approached, his enhanced hearing picking up the distinctive clicking of Kytherian vocal cords. Through his tactical display, he watched 3 of the insectoid warriors pass by, their chitinous armor gleaming under the emergency lights. Each stood nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws and compound eyes that missed nothing. The diplomatic mission to establish relations with the Altarian Federation had been going well until the Kytherians arrived, apparently. They had a history with the Altarians that made peaceful coexistence impossible. Now Marcus found himself caught in the middle of an ancient conflict, one of only 12 security personnel trying to protect over 200 civilians. He checked his comm unit, hoping for updates from the evacuation teams, but found only static. The Kytherians had jammed most communications, leaving scattered groups of survivors to fend for themselves. His orders were simple: reach the emergency bunkers and help coordinate the defense until Alliance reinforcements arrived. If they arrived, Marcus moved carefully through the diplomatic wing, noting the signs of hasty evacuation. Abandoned personal items littered the hallways, and emergency blast doors hung partially open where people had fled too quickly to properly secure them. The air recycling system struggled with the acrid smell of burning electronics and something organic that made his stomach turn. A soft whimper caught his attention. He froze, listening intently. The sound came again, barely audible over the distant explosions and emergency alarms. It was coming from behind a collapsed section of wall paneling near the Altarian embassy quarters. Marcus approached cautiously, his weapon raised but not threatening. The diplomatic station housed dozens of different species, and he had learned to be careful about sudden movements around non-humans. Many species had evolved prey responses to quick motions. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Hello," he called softly. "I'm with station security. Are you injured?" The whimpering stopped immediately, followed by absolute silence. Marcus waited patiently, his training in xenobiology reminding him that many species required time to process vocal communication from unfamiliar beings. "I know you're frightened," he continued, keeping his voice gentle. "The bad aliens are gone from this section. I can help you reach safety." A small sound emerged from behind the debris, almost like a question. Marcus recognized it as Altarian, though he only knew a few basic phrases from the diplomatic briefings. The Altarians were a peaceful species, known for their artistic achievements and philosophical nature. They had been humanity's first successful diplomatic contact, leading to the establishment of New Geneva Station. Carefully, Marcus set his weapon on the floor where it would be visible but non-threatening. He raised his hands in the universal gesture of peace, then slowly approached the damaged wall section. What he found there made his heart clench with protective instinct. A small Altarian child, no more than the equivalent of 6 or 7 human years, crouched behind the twisted metal. Her pale blue skin was streaked with tears, and her large silver eyes showed the kind of terror that no child should ever experience. She wore what appeared to be a formal dress, now torn and dirty, suggesting she had been attending some kind of ceremony when the attack began. "Hey there, little one," Marcus said softly, crouching down to her level. "My name is Marcus. What's your name?" The child's response was a barely audible whisper in Alcarian. Marcus caught the word Zara, which he assumed was her name. She pressed herself further back against the wall, her small frame trembling with fear. Marcus remembered from the briefings that Altarians were an empathic species, able to sense emotional states in others. He consciously tried to project calm and safety, thinking peaceful thoughts while maintaining non-threatening body language. "Zara," he repeated gently. "That's a beautiful name. I'm going to help you find your family, okay?" The child's eyes darted to his weapon, then back to his face. Through her tears, Marcus could see intelligence and awareness far beyond her apparent age. She spoke again in Altarian, the words rushing together in obvious distress. Marcus wished desperately that he had paid more attention during the language courses. He caught fragments about warriors and hunting, along with what sounded like a description of her parents. The way she spoke about them in past tense made his chest tighten with dread. "I'm sorry, Zara," he said, his voice heavy with genuine emotion. "I don't understand all your words, but I promise I'll keep you safe." As if responding to his sincerity, Zara's trembling began to subside slightly. She studied his face with those large silver eyes, and Marcus felt an odd tingling sensation, as if something was gently probing the edges of his consciousness. The Altarian empathic abilities, he realized, whatever she sensed must have reassured her because she spoke again, this time in halting but recognizable standard galactic. "You help Zara?" she asked, her child's voice making the formal language sound almost musical. "Yes," Marcus replied firmly. "I help Zara, but we need to move to somewhere safer. Can you walk?" She nodded, then surprised him by reaching out with one small hand. Marcus extended his own hand, and she grasped it with surprising strength. The moment their skin made contact, he felt a wave of emotion that wasn't his own, gratitude mixed with lingering terror, and underneath it all, a child's absolute trust in an adult who had promised protection. Standing carefully, Marcus helped Zara to her feet. She was smaller than he had expected, barely reaching his waist. Her species' natural grace was evident even in her frightened state, and he could see why the Altarians were renowned for their artistic abilities. Every movement held an inherent elegance. "We're going to go to a safe place," Marcus explained, retrieving his weapon and checking the corridor. "But we need to be very quiet. The bad aliens might hear us." Zara nodded solemnly, then did something that surprised him. She moved to stand directly behind him, her small hands gripping the back of his security uniform. From the briefings, he remembered that Altarian children often sought physical contact with trusted adults when frightened, but the positioning was unusual. "Zara," he asked softly, "why do you stand behind me?" Her response was barely a whisper. Zara too scared. Marcus big. Marcus protect. Something in her tone suggested there was more to it than simple fear, but Marcus didn't have time to explore the topic. His tactical display showed movement 3 corridors away, and they needed to reach the emergency bunkers before the Kytherian search parties expanded their sweep. They moved through the station's corridors with careful precision, Marcus using his security access codes to navigate through the maze of diplomatic quarters and administrative sections. Zara remained pressed close behind him, her small hands maintaining constant contact with his uniform. He could feel her tension increase whenever they passed blast damage or encountered signs of the attack. The emergency bunkers were located in the station's core, protected by multiple layers of armor plating and defensive systems. If they could reach them, Zara would be safe with the other civilians while Marcus returned to help coordinate the defense. As they approached a major intersection, Marcus held up his hand in a stop gesture. His enhanced hearing detected the familiar clicking of Kytherian communication, and his tactical display confirmed multiple hostile signatures ahead. "Stay close," he whispered to Zara. "We're going to take a different path." But as they turned down an alternate corridor, they found themselves face to face with a Kytherian patrol. 3 of the insectoid warriors stood between them and the only other exit, their compound eyes immediately focusing on the human and the Altarian child. Their mandibles clicked rapidly as they communicated, and Marcus recognized the body language of predators sizing up their prey. Marcus slowly raised his weapon, knowing it was futile. His pulse pistol might damage their armor, but 3 against 1 were impossible odds. Still, he had made a promise to protect Zara, and he intended to keep it even if it cost him his life. "Stay behind me," he told Zara firmly. "No matter what happens." The lead Kytherian raised its primary weapon, some kind of plasma projector that would turn Marcus into vapor in seconds. The alien's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile, as it savored the moment before the kill. Then something extraordinary happened. Zara stepped out from behind Marcus, placing herself between him and the Kytherians. The small Altarian child, who moments before had been trembling with terror, now stood with a straight back and raised chin. Her silver eyes blazed with an inner light that Marcus had never seen before. She spoke a single word in Altarian, her child's voice carrying an authority that seemed to fill the entire corridor. The effect on the Kytherians was immediate and shocking. All 3 warriors took a step backward, their weapons lowering as their compound eyes fixed on the small child. Their clicking communication became rapid and agitated, filled with what sounded like confusion and something that might have been fear. The lead Kytherian spoke directly to Zara, its voice translator rendering the words in standard galactic. "Impossible." The blessed line ended. "We made sure." Zara responded in the same language, her young voice steady despite the tears still glistening on her cheeks. "The blessed line remembers. The covenant remains." Marcus watched in amazement as the 3 deadly warriors continued to back away from a child who barely reached their lower set of arms. Whatever was happening went far beyond his understanding, but he could sense the shift in power dynamics. The Kytherians were no longer predators facing prey. They were something else entirely. One of the other warriors spoke urgently to its leader, and Marcus's translator caught fragments about protocols and ancient agreements. The lead Kytherian's response was sharp and decisive. "Withdraw. Immediate. Extraction. Alert the fleet commanders." Without another word, the 3 Kytherians turned and moved away at a pace that could only be described as retreat. Their heavy footsteps faded quickly as they headed toward what Marcus assumed were their extraction points. The corridor fell silent except for the distant sounds of battle from other sections of the station. Marcus stared at Zara, who had turned back to face him. The inner light in her eyes was fading, and she was once again just a frightened child who had somehow managed to drive off 3 heavily armed alien warriors with nothing but words. "Zara," he said carefully, "what just happened?" She looked up at him with those large silver eyes, and he could see confusion mixed with exhaustion. Zara not sure. The knowing came, and Zara spoke the old words. Mama taught, but Zara never understand before. Marcus knelt down to her level, his mind racing with implications. "What did you tell them?" "The truth," Zara replied simply. "That the covenant remains. That the blessed line remembers the ancient promise." Before Marcus could ask for clarification, his unit crackled to life with urgent messages. The voice of Commander Harrison, the station's chief of security, cut through the static. All units, Kytherian forces are withdrawing. Repeat, hostile forces are pulling back to their ships. Unknown cause. Maintain defensive positions until confirmed." Marcus looked at Zara, who was once again gripping the back of his uniform with small hands. "Did you do that? Did you make them leave?" She nodded solemnly. "The old agreement. From before the wartime." Kytherians promised to honor the blessed line. They forgot, but Zara made them remember. The pieces began forming a picture that Marcus could barely comprehend. The Altarians and Kytherians had an ancient history, some kind of treaty or covenant that predated their current conflict. And somehow, this small child represented something that even hardened Kytherian warriors were bound to respect. His unit buzzed again, this time with a direct message from Commander Harrison. "Webb, report to command immediately. We're receiving priority communications from the Kytherian fleet. They're requesting a formal parley, and they specifically mentioned an Altarian child in your sector." Marcus felt Zara's grip tighten on his uniform as she pressed closer against his back. Through their brief contact, he could sense her fear returning. Whatever she had done, whatever ancient power she had invoked, it was taking her far from the simple childhood she deserved. "Don't worry," he told her softly, reaching back to pat her small hand reassuringly. "I promise to protect you, and that promise doesn't change just because you're more special than I realized." Her response was barely audible, spoken into the fabric of his uniform. Zara scared Marcus. The knowing is big. Too big for small Zara. Marcus stood carefully, making sure Zara maintained her grip on his back. "Then we'll figure it out together. But first, we need to reach the command center. Can you be brave a little longer?" "With Marcus, Zara can be brave," she whispered, and he felt the absolute trust in her voice. As they began moving toward the station's command center, Marcus's mind wrestled with the implications of what he had witnessed. A child had stopped an invasion with words. Ancient agreements had trumped military might. And somehow he had become the protector of what might be the most important individual in known space. The corridors they passed were eerily quiet now. The sounds of battle replaced by the organized movement of security teams securing cleared areas. Other survivors were beginning to emerge from hiding places, their faces showing the same confusion Marcus felt about the sudden Kytherian withdrawal. "Marcus," Zara said softly as they walked, "the knowing tells Zara that big changes come. The old ways return. Will Marcus help Zara with the big changes?" He thought about everything that had led to this moment. A routine security assignment that had become a first contact situation, then an invasion, and now something that might reshape the balance of power in this entire sector of space. All because a terrified child had hidden behind him and trusted him to keep her safe. "Yes, Zara," he said firmly. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Behind him, he felt her small form relax slightly against his back. The child who carried the weight of ancient covenants and forgotten promises was, at her core, still just a little girl who needed someone to tell her everything would be all right. As they approached the command center, Marcus could see through the transparent aluminum windows that Commander Harrison was already deep in conversation with what appeared to be a holographic representation of a Kytherian leader. The alien's posture was respectful, almost deferential, as it gestured toward documents being displayed on the main screen. "Looks like the real negotiations are about to begin," Marcus murmured to Zara. She pressed closer against his back, her small hands gripping his uniform tighter. "The old words say that the blessed line must speak for both peoples. Zara must learn the big knowing fast." Marcus paused just outside the command center doors, understanding the magnitude of what lay ahead. This child would become a bridge between species, a living reminder of ancient promises and forgotten wisdom. And he would be there beside her, not as a negotiator or diplomat, but as the person she trusted to keep her safe while she carried the weight of interstellar peace. "Ready?" he asked softly. Zara's response carried a strength that seemed far beyond her years. With Marcus to protect, Zara is ready for anything. The command center doors opened, and Marcus Webb stepped forward into a future none of them could have imagined, carrying the hopes of two species on his shoulders and the trust of one very special child. Pressed close against his back, the command Center buzzed with controlled chaos as Marcus entered with Zara still clinging to his back. Officers moved between workstations displaying tactical readouts, communication logs, and what appeared to be ancient text in multiple alien languages. Commander Harrison looked up from a heated discussion with his senior staff, his weathered face showing the strain of the past few hours. "Webb," Harrison called out, his eyes immediately finding the small Altarian child. "Thank God you're both safe. We need to understand what happened out there." The holographic display dominated the center of the room, showing Fleet Commander Thakmer of the Kytherian invasion force. The massive insectoid leader's compound eyes focused immediately on Zara, and Marcus felt the child's grip tighten on his uniform. What surprised him was the respectful bow the alien commander gave before speaking. "The small one carries the ancient." "Mark," Thakmer said, his translated voice carrying notes of something Marcus had never heard from a Kytherian before: reverence. "We did not know any of the blessed line survived the purges." Commander Harrison gestured for Marcus to approach the main console. "This is Security Officer Webb, who found the child and protected her during the initial assault. Perhaps you can explain to us what this blessed line means?" Zara whispered something in Marcus's ear, too quiet for the others to hear. The knowing grows stronger. Zara sees the memory paths now, but scared to walk them alone. Marcus nodded slightly, keeping his voice equally quiet. "I'm right here. Whatever you need to do, we do it together." Fleet Commander Thakmar's mandibles clicked in what Marcus was beginning to recognize as Kytherian emotional expression. "The blessed line represents the original peacemakers between our species. 5,000 cycles ago, when the Great War threatened to destroy both civilizations, it was the blessed line that forged the sacred covenant." The main display shifted to show ancient star maps and what appeared to be ceremonial documents covered in symbols from both species. Dr. Sarah Chun, the station's Zen archaeologist, moved closer to examine the texts. "Incredible," she breathed. "These aren't just treaties, they're genetic markers. The blessed line wasn't just a political designation. It was a specific family line bred for empathic connection between species." Zara stepped out from behind Marcus, her small form dwarfed by the adults around her. When she spoke, her young voice carried an authority that made everyone in the room fall silent. "The covenant was broken when the fear time came," she said, her silver eyes reflecting the holographic displays. "Both peoples forgot the old promises. The blessed line was hunted, scattered, believed extinct. But the blood remembers, even when the mind forgets." Commander Harrison knelt to Zara's level, his expression gentle despite the military bearing. "Can you help us understand what the covenant required? What promises were made?" Zara looked back at Marcus, seeking reassurance. He nodded encouragingly, and she turned back to face the assembled officers and the alien fleet commander. "The covenant bound both species to honor the blessed line as neutral arbiters. Where the blessed line spoke for peace, weapons must be lowered. Where the blessed line claimed sanctuary, none could offer harm. The blood bond made this sacred law." Fleet Commander Thakmer's clicking intensified. "The old records speak of ritual trials, tests to prove the authenticity of the blessed line. We cannot simply accept claims without verification." Dr. Chun looked up from her examination of the ancient texts. "According to these documents, the trials involved demonstrating the unique empathic abilities that made the blessed line effective mediators. The ability to create mental bridges between incompatible species." Marcus felt a chill as he realized the implications. "You're talking about putting a child through some kind of test to prove her heritage?" "The trials are not harmful," Thakmer assured them. "They are demonstrations of ability. If the small one truly carries the blessed line, she will be able to establish the empathic bridge that our species have been unable to create for millennia." Zara tugged on Marcus's sleeve, drawing his attention down to her level. "Marcus, the knowing shows Zara what must be done. But the bridge making is scary. Need Marcus to be the anchor point. Anchor point? Marcus asked, though he suspected he wasn't going to like the answer. Dr. Chun was already pulling up more ancient texts. The records indicate that blessed line. Individuals required a bonded partner from another species to safely channel the empathic energies. Someone who could serve as a stabilizing influence during the bridge creation process. Commander Harrison looked between Marcus and Zara, understanding dawning in his expression. She's chosen you as her anchor. That's why she stayed behind you. Why she trusts you so completely. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a physical burden. What does being an anchor point actually involve? Temporary mental connection, Thekmer explained. The blessed line individual channels empathic energy through their chosen anchor, using the anchor's mental stability to maintain control. It allows them to create bridges between species without being overwhelmed by the alien emotions. The idea of sharing his mind with anyone, even a child he had grown protective of, was terrifying. But Marcus looked down at Zara's trusting silver eyes and knew he couldn't abandon her now. Okay, he said firmly. What do we need to do? The next hour was spent in preparation. Dr. Chun and her team worked with the Kytherian archives to understand the proper procedures for the trial, while Marcus underwent a series of psychological evaluations to ensure he could handle the mental connection safely. Zara remained close to his side throughout the process, her small hand often finding his arm or sleeve. Marcus could sense her growing anxiety as the moment approached, but also a determination that seemed far beyond her apparent age. The trial chamber is prepared, Commander Harrison announced. We've set up neutral ground in Conference Room Alpha. Both human and Kytherian representatives will observe, but the actual trial will be conducted in isolation to prevent outside interference. As they walked toward the trial chamber, Marcus felt Zara's tension increasing. Hey, he said softly, stopping to kneel beside her. Are you sure about this? We can find another way. She looked at him with those impossibly mature eyes. The knowing says this is the only path to peace. Too many have died because the covenant was forgotten. Zara cannot let more die when she has the power to stop it. The trial chamber was a sterile clinical space lined with monitoring equipment from both species. A simple chair sat in the center, surrounded by energy field generators that would record and analyze the empathic bridge if Zara could create one. Fleet Commander Thekmer materialized as a full hologram, his presence somehow less intimidating. In this formal setting, the trial requires the blessed line candidate to establish an empathic connection with a representative of each species simultaneously. Through the anchor point, she must demonstrate the ability to translate emotions and intentions between incompatible neural structures. Marcus took his position beside Zara's chair, placing his hand on her shoulder as the technicians had instructed. The moment their skin made contact, he felt the now familiar tingle of her empathic abilities, but stronger than before. Beginning. Trial sequence, Dr. Chun announced from the observation room. Zara, whenever you're ready. The small Eltarian child closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Marcus felt her consciousness expand, reaching out through their physical contact to touch his mind. The sensation was gentle but overwhelming, like being immersed in warm water that somehow contained thoughts and emotions. Through their connection, Marcus suddenly felt what Zara was experiencing, not just her own emotions, but the complex alien thought patterns of Fleet Commander Thekmer. The Kytherian's mind was structured completely differently from human consciousness, operating on multiple levels simultaneously with a hierarchical decision-making process that felt utterly foreign. But through Zara's abilities, Marcus could understand it. The Fleet Commander's aggressive posture masked deep uncertainty about the invasion. The Kytherians were acting out of desperation, their homeworlds threatened by an enemy they couldn't identify or defeat. The attack on New Geneva Station had been a last-ditch attempt to secure resources and allies, "I can feel it," Marcus whispered, amazed by the clarity of the connection. "I understand what he's thinking." Zara's voice came through their mental link rather than her physical voice. Now Marcus must help Zara show the fleet commander human thoughts. Share your protection feeling, the care bond you made with Zara. Marcus focused on his emotions during their first meeting, the protective instinct that had driven him to help a frightened child, the growing bond of trust and affection, the determination to keep her safe regardless of personal cost. Through Zara's empathic bridge, he felt those emotions translate into concepts that Thekmer could understand. The fleet commander's reaction was immediate and powerful. His compound eyes widened as he experienced human protective instincts through the filter of Alcerian empathic translation. For the first time, he truly understood why humans fought so fiercely for their young and their chosen family groups. Remarkable. Thekmer's voice carried wonder. The protective bond is similar to our own hive loyalty, but individualized. This explains much about human tactical behavior. But the trial was far from over. Zara's consciousness expanded further, reaching out to touch the minds of other observers through her connection with Marcus. Dr. Chun gasped as she experienced a moment of true understanding about Alcerian artistic expression. Commander Harrison felt the weight of Kytherian collective responsibility for their species' survival. The empathic bridge continued to grow stronger, connecting more individuals across species lines. Marcus felt like a conduit for an energy that was reshaping the very nature of understanding between different forms of consciousness. Then something went wrong. Zara's small body began to tremble as the empathic energies grew beyond her ability to control. Through their connection, Marcus felt her panic as alien emotions from dozens of different individuals began flooding through her consciousness without proper filtering. "She's losing control," Dr. Chun shouted from the observation room. "The bridge is becoming unstable." Marcus felt Zara's terror as the empathic overload threatened to overwhelm her young mind. Without thinking, he wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close and focusing all his mental energy on providing stability. "I've got you," he said both aloud and through their mental link. "Focus on me. Use my strength." Through their connection, Marcus felt himself becoming more than just an anchor point. He was actively sharing the burden of the empathic bridge, his human mental patterns providing structure and organization to the chaotic flood of alien emotions. The bridge stabilized. But now Marcus was experiencing the full weight of what Zara had been carrying. The desperate fear of the Kytherians, the artistic passion of the Alcerians, the determined protectiveness of the humans, all of it flowed through his consciousness without overwhelming him because he was sharing the load with someone who trusted him completely. Incredible, Fleet Commander Thekmer breathed. The bond between Anchor and Blessed Line is deeper than our records indicated. You are not just stabilizing her abilities, you are amplifying them. Through the empathic bridge, Marcus felt the exact moment when understanding bloomed in the Fleet Commander's mind. The Kytherian leader experienced not just translated emotions, but the full depth of the bond between Marcus and Zara, the protective love of a chosen family, the mutual trust that had developed through shared danger, the absolute commitment to each other's well-being. "This is what the Covenant was meant to preserve," Thekmer said, his voice filled with something that might have been regret. "Not just the ability to translate between species, but the demonstration that such bonds can exist across any divide." The empathic bridge gradually faded as Zara's consciousness withdrew, but the connections it had created remained. Marcus found himself still able to sense the emotional states of those who had been touched by the bridge, while they retained an understanding of human protective instincts that would forever change how they viewed his species. Zara collapsed against Marcus's chest, exhausted but triumphant. "The trial is complete," she whispered. "The Blessed Line is proven. The Covenant can be renewed." Fleet Commander Thakmar's image flickered as he transmitted new orders to his fleet. All Kytherian forces will withdraw immediately. The sacred covenant is acknowledged and renewed. The blessed line will be honored and protected. Commander Harrison stepped forward, his expression mixing relief with concern. What happens now? We can't expect a child to carry this burden alone. She won't be alone, Marcus said firmly, his arms still wrapped protectively around Zara. The bridge showed me what being an anchor point really means. It's not just for trials, it's a permanent bond. She needs support for whatever comes next. Dr. Chun was already accessing the ancient records. According to these documents, the renewal of the covenant requires the establishment of a new blessed line sanctuary, a place where representatives from all species can come to resolve conflicts through empathic mediation. Zara looked up at Marcus, her silver eyes bright with exhaustion and hope. Will Marcus help Zara build the new sanctuary? The knowing shows that many species will come, seeking the peace bridge. Marcus thought about his simple life as a security officer, now forever changed by meeting one special child. The responsibilities ahead seemed overwhelming, but the trust in Zara's eyes made the choice easy. We'll build it together, he promised, whatever it takes. Fleet Commander Thakmar's parting words carried the weight of ancient promises renewed. The Kytherian collective will honor the covenant. Resources will be provided for the sanctuary. The blessed line will be protected. As the holographic display faded and the command center began returning to normal operations, Marcus felt the magnitude of what had just occurred. A child's heritage had ended an invasion, renewed an ancient peace treaty, and possibly changed the course of interstellar relations. But more than that, he had found something he hadn't realized he was looking for, a purpose beyond his own survival, and a bond deeper than anything he had ever imagined possible. Zara fell asleep in his arms as the adrenaline finally faded, her small form completely relaxed in the safety of his protection. Through their lingering empathic connection, Marcus could feel her dreams beginning to fill with visions of the sanctuary they would build together, a place where understanding could bridge any divide. The future stretched ahead, full of challenges and responsibilities that neither of them could have imagined. But they would face it together, the human protector and the child who carried the hopes of multiple species in her small hands. 6 months after the invasion, Marcus stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching construction crews from a dozen different species work together to complete the new sanctuary. The massive structure grew daily, its architecture a flowing blend of human engineering, Altarian artistry, and Kytherian defensive design. It was beautiful in a way that no single species could have achieved alone. Zara pressed against his side, her growth spurred over the past months, making her tall enough to reach his elbow now. Her silver hair had grown longer, often braided with small ornaments gifted by visiting diplomats. But her storm-gray eyes remained the same, filled with ancient wisdom that sometimes made Marcus forget she was still essentially a child. The Vailthrin delegation arrives today, she said softly, her enhanced abilities allowing her to sense the approaching ships before the sensors detected them. They carry much anger and fear. Their war with the Mordesh collective has lasted 3 generations. Marcus nodded, checking the diplomatic schedule on his tablet. As director of sanctuary security, his job had evolved far beyond simple protection. He now coordinated between multiple species security protocols, managed first contact situations, and served as Zara's primary anchor during increasingly complex mediation sessions. "Think you're ready for them?" he asked, though he already knew the answer through their permanent empathic link. "With Marcus as anchor, Zara is ready for anything," she replied, using the same words she had spoken before their first trial. It had become something of a ritual between them, a reminder of the trust that had started everything. The past 6 months had transformed both their lives completely. Marcus had resigned from Alliance Security to accept his new role, while Zara, had been officially recognized as the first blessed line mediator in 5 millennia. The sanctuary they were building would serve as neutral ground for conflicts that traditional diplomacy couldn't resolve. Their bond had deepened with each mediation session. Marcus could now sense Zara's emotions as clearly as his own, while she had learned to draw on his stability and strength during the most challenging empathic bridges. They had become something unique in the galaxy, a permanent partnership between species that enhanced both their capabilities. The Kytherian educational modules arrived this morning, Marcus mentioned, watching Zara's face light up with interest. Fleet Commander Thakmer included some advanced tactical theory along with the historical records. Zara's education had become a collaborative effort between multiple species. The Altarians provided artistic and empathic training. Humans contributed practical skills and emotional stability techniques, while the Kytherians shared their vast historical archives and strategic knowledge. She was becoming something unprecedented. A truly multi-species individual. Thakmer teaches good lessons, Zara said, her standard galactic becoming more sophisticated with each passing day. The tactical knowing helps Zara understand why species fight before they learn to trust. A chime from Marcus's comm unit indicated an incoming priority message. The display showed Ambassador Elena Vasquez, the human representative to the newly formed Mediation Council. Marcus Zara, the ambassador's voice carried barely controlled excitement. We've just received a request that changes everything. The hegemony wants to send a delegation. Marcus felt Zara's surprise echo through their bond. The hegemony was the largest political entity in known space, controlling over 300 star systems. They had remained neutral during most conflicts, but their interest in the sanctuary represented validation on a galactic scale. When do they arrive? Marcus asked, already calculating the security implications. That's the unusual part, Ambassador Vasquez continued. They're not sending politicians or diplomats. They're sending the hegemony crown prince himself, along with his personal guard. It appears they have a conflict that requires personal attention. Through their link, Marcus felt Zara's consciousness expand as she reached out with her abilities. Her empathic senses could detect emotional resonances across vast distances when she focused, and what she found made her small form tense with concern. The prince carries great pain, she whispered, and fear. Not fear of death, but fear of failure. Something threatens all he protects. Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, their physical contact strengthening their mental connection. Can you sense what kind of threat? Zara closed her eyes, her young face scrunching with concentration. The knowing is strange. The threat comes from within the hegemony itself. A betrayal by those who should be trusted most. The prince seeks not mediation between enemies, but wisdom to distinguish friend from foe. This was new territory for them. All their previous mediations had involved conflicts between different species or political entities. An internal hegemony matter would require different approaches and carried much higher stakes. We'll need to prepare differently, Marcus said, his tactical training analyzing the implications. Internal conflicts are more dangerous because the emotional bonds run deeper. When family betrays family, the wounds cut to the soul. Over the following days, the sanctuary buzzed with preparation for the hegemony delegation. Additional security measures were implemented, not because the visitors posed a threat, but because the stakes of failure were so high. If the Blessed Line mediation couldn't help the Crown Prince, it might undermine everything they had built. Marcus found himself spending more time in combat training, working with specialists from multiple species to enhance his protective capabilities. As Zara's anchor, his physical and mental state directly affected her empathic abilities. If he was compromised, she could be overwhelmed by the alien emotions she channeled. Zara, meanwhile, prepared by studying hegemony history and culture with Dr. Chun and the expanded research team. The hegemony was actually a coalition of 17 different species, each with their own empathic signatures and emotional patterns. Creating bridges between so many different consciousness types simultaneously would be the most challenging mediation she had ever attempted. The old records mention something called the Unity Bridge, Dr. Chen explained during one of their preparation sessions. It was a theoretical technique that the original Blessed Line developed but never successfully implemented. It involves creating a single empathic connection that encompasses multiple species simultaneously. Marcus felt a chill of concern through his bond with Zara. Theoretical meaning it was never tested? The records suggest they attempted it once. During the final days of the Great War, Dr. Chen continued. But the Blessed Line mediator was overwhelmed and died in the attempt. The technique was deemed too dangerous and was forbidden. Zara looked up from her study materials, her silver eyes reflecting deep thought. But that mediator worked alone. Zara has Marcus as anchor. Maybe the Unity Bridge is possible with proper support. The idea terrified Marcus, but he could sense Zara's determination through their link. She had made peace with the possibility of attempting the forbidden technique, if it meant saving the hegemony from internal collapse. When the hegemony delegation arrived, Marcus was struck by the diversity of the group. Crown Prince Election was human in appearance, but carried himself with the regal bearing of someone born to ultimate authority. His personal guard included representatives from each of the hegemony's member species, their mixed presence a testament to the unity they were trying to preserve. The prince himself was younger than Marcus had expected, perhaps in his early 30s, with the kind of intense focus that came from carrying impossible responsibilities. When he met Zara, his controlled composure cracked slightly, revealing genuine surprise at her apparent youth. "You are the Blessed Line mediator?" he asked, his voice carrying the weight of skepticism mixed with desperate hope. "Zara is," she replied simply, then gestured toward Marcus. "With Marcus as anchor point. Together we help species understand each other." Prince Election studied them both with calculating eyes. "My situation is complex. The conflict I face cannot be resolved through traditional diplomacy because it involves those closest to me. Can you truly help distinguish truth from deception, loyalty from betrayal?" Through their bond, Marcus felt Zara reaching out with her empathic senses, carefully probing the edges of the prince's consciousness. What she found there made her step closer to Marcus, seeking the stability of their connection. "The prince's pain runs very deep," she said softly. "Someone beloved has become enemy. The knowing shows." A brother's face twisted with envy and hatred. Prince Election's controlled facade crumbled completely. "My younger brother, Commander Darius. He leads the hegemony's military forces, but intelligence suggests he's planning a coup. I cannot act against him without proof, but if I wait too long, civil war will tear apart everything our family has built." Marcus understood the impossible position. Act too early, and the prince would destroy his relationship with his brother, and potentially destabilize the hegemony through false accusations. Wait too long, and the coup might succeed, plunging 300 star systems into chaos. "The Unity Bridge," Zara said suddenly, her young voice carrying absolute certainty. "It is the only way to see truth through so many layers of deception and conflicted loyalty." Dr. Chen, who had been monitoring the conversation, stepped forward with concern. "Zara, the risks are acceptable," Prince Election interrupted, his desperation overriding caution. "If there's a chance to save my people, without destroying my family, I'll take any risk." The preparation for the Unity Bridge took 3 days. Unlike their previous mediations, this one would require Zara to simultaneously connect with representatives from all 17 hegemony species, using their combined perspective to see through the deception surrounding the alleged coup plot. Marcus underwent intensive mental conditioning, preparing to serve as anchor for the most complex empathic bridge ever attempted. The strain on both of them would be enormous, But the alternative was the potential collapse of the largest peaceful alliance in known space. On the day of the mediation, the sanctuary's main chamber was filled with representatives from each hegemony. Species. Prince Election sat in the center, surrounded by his multi-species guard. At his request, holographic communications had been established with key hegemony worlds, including the military command where his brother Darius was stationed. Zara took her position beside Marcus, her small hand gripping his arm as the empathic field generators activated. "Remember," she whispered, "no matter how strange the knowing becomes, trust Zara. Trust the bond." Marcus nodded, focusing his mind on providing the stability she would need. "Together," he said simply, "the Unity Bridge began unlike any of their previous mediations. Instead of gradually expanding her consciousness, Zara immediately reached out to touch every mind in the chamber simultaneously. Marcus felt the overwhelming rush of 17 different types of awareness flowing through their connection. The hierarchical thinking of insectoid species, the emotional intensity of mammalian consciousness, the mathematical precision of silicon-based minds. Through the bridge, the truth about Commander Darius became clear with shocking swiftness. He was indeed planning a coup, but not out of personal ambition. Intercepted communications showed that he genuinely believed his brother was too weak to lead during an approaching crisis, an invasion fleet from beyond the galactic rim that only the military had detected. The Unity Bridge revealed layers of misunderstanding and failed communication. Prince Election hadn't been told about the approaching threat because his brother feared he would panic the population. Commander Darius was preparing to take control because he believed only military leadership could save the hegemony. Both brothers were acting out of love for their people, but their secrets were tearing apart the very unity they sought to protect. "The enemy comes from the dark between stars." Zara's voice carried the weight of the Unity Bridge as she spoke what all 17 species consciousness had revealed. But the true enemy is not the invaders. It is the fear that makes brothers into strangers. Through the empathic connection, Prince Election experienced his brother's disparate love for the hegemony, while Commander Darius felt his older brother's genuine wisdom and strength. The coup plot dissolved in moments as understanding replaced suspicion. But the Unity Bridge had revealed something else. The approaching invasion was real, and it would require both brothers working together to have any hope of survival. "The Dark Fleet comes in 2 cycles, Zara continued. Her consciousness still expanded across the 17 species bridge. But united knowing shows the path to victory. The hegemony's strength is not in weapons, but in the harmony of many species working as one. The mediation continued for hours as the Unity Bridge revealed strategic possibilities that no single species could have conceived. The approaching invaders were powerful, but they had never faced the kind of coordinated multi-species defense that the hegemony could mount when truly united. When the bridge finally collapsed, both Marcus and Zara were exhausted beyond measure. But the results were undeniable. The hegemony's internal conflict had been resolved, and they now had a unified strategy for facing the external threat. Prince Election embraced his brother through the holographic connection. Years of mistrust dissolved by the empathic truth they had shared. "Forgive me, Darius. I should have trusted you with the truth from the beginning." "And I should have trusted your leadership," Commander Darius replied. "Together, we'll face whatever comes." As the hegemony delegation prepared to depart, Prince Election knelt before Zara with genuine reverence. "You have saved not just my family, but 300 star systems. How can we ever repay this debt?" Zara looked up at Marcus, her silver eyes reflecting the deep satisfaction of work well done. "The knowing says that the Dark Fleet will threaten all species, not just the hegemony. When that time comes, all must stand together. The blessed line exists to build bridges. Help us build the greatest bridge of all." Prince Election understood. Immediately, an alliance of all peaceful species united against the darkness. Yes, we will help build that bridge. Months later, as reports arrived of the approaching invasion fleet, Marcus watched the greatest gathering in galactic history assemble around Harmony Station. Ships from hundreds of worlds, representing dozens of species, all united by the bridges that Zara had helped create. Scared? He asked Zara as they stood together on the observation deck. She leaned against his side, her presence in their shared bond radiating calm confidence. With Marcus as anchor, Zara is ready for anything, she said, smiling up at him. Even saving the galaxy. The greatest test of the blessed line was yet to come, but Marcus knew they would face it as they had faced everything else, together, united by a bond that had grown from a simple promise to protect a frightened child into something that could unite the stars themselves.